Good morning. Happy Friday. It's the weekend. Who else is excited for the weekend? We are in the kitchen today and we are going to be making Quiche Lorraine. That is one of the recipes that was on this week's meal plan. If you don't get the meal plan, head over to the blog, yourhomebasedmom.com, sign up for the weekly email, and you'll get it every Sunday in your inbox, along with the shopping list. And I love hearing from you when you are using it. So if you're making some of the recipes from the meal plan, snap a picture, post it in your Instagram stories, send it to me. I love to see what you're making. So I always try to have one breakfast meatless dish on the, or meatless, I should say, breakfast or meatless on the recipe plan each week. And love my cute shirt. Isn't this cute? The weekend. I'm ready for the weekend. Are you? And so this week, Quiche Lorraine was it. Now, quiche is, I think maybe some people think it's something fancy because it's French. I don't know. But it's so easy. And one of my favorite things about quiche is it is the perfect way to use up leftovers that are in your refrigerator. Today I'm going to show you specifically Quiche Lorraine, which is made with ham, bacon, and Swiss cheese. But basically, when you have the basic quiche recipe and proportions, which I'm gonna give to you, and it's also in the blog post over on the blog. If you just go to yourhomebasedmom.com and type in Quiche Lorraine, you'll have it there too. But once you have your basic formula down for quiche, you can use whatever you have in your refrigerator. That's one of the great things about it. The other thing I love about quiche is it's really great for entertaining, especially if you're doing a brunch or a breakfast, because it tastes really good at room temperature. And when I'm, especially like you're doing an Easter brunch this year, have some quiche, because you can then be using your oven to cook your other things, your warm hot crust buns or your muffins or your cinnamon rolls or whatever. And the quiche can be made ahead of time. You can make it the night before and then pull it out. You can actually even serve it chilled if you want. But I like to pull it out, let it come to room temperature. You can warm it up in the oven or the microwave to serve it. So it is a perfect thing for entertaining or holidays because you can make it ahead of time. So, and you can eat it warm, you can eat it cold, you can eat it at room temperature. So lots of flexibility there. I love a dish that gives me that much flexibility. So how do you make a quiche? Well, the base of a quiche is a pastry crust or a pie crust. And you have two options. You can make your own, which I did because it really is so easy, and I have a great post and video on the blog if you want to know how to make your own pie crust. It's called the Perfect Pie Crust Tutorial, and I'll link to it at the end of this video. But you can also use a store-bought pie crust, the kind that you buy. You're gonna find them in the freezer section, and they're the ones that actually, not the ones that are rolled up. I prefer the ones that actually come already in the pie dish. And I like the I think it's the Marie Callender's brand is the one. And for a quiche, I like to use a deep dish pie crust. So you can find those deep dish ones in the freezer section, not in the refrigerator section, in the freezer. But like I said, I decided to make my own, and because in the amount of time it takes me to go to the grocery store to buy one, I can pretty much make one. And I usually have all the ingredients. So we're not gonna actually make the pie crust today, but I just wanna give you, my recipe uses butter and shortening. I know you'll find recipes out there that are all shortening, some that are all butter. Hey everybody, thanks for joining. I use a combination. I use half butter, half shortening in my pie crust. And I think it just gives me a really nice, flaky, tender pie crust. And just another tip, when you're, use your pastry blender to mix it up. Don't worry if you have some little chunks of butter in there when you're rolling up your pie crust, because those are just gonna melt in and make it even more tender. So you want to, with your pie crust, whether you're making one yourself or you're buying it in the freezer section, you wanna do what's called a blind bake, okay? That means you're gonna pre-cook the pie crust before you put the filling in. You always blind bake a pie crust if you're gonna you're doing a pie like a cream pie, like later today, there'll be a coconut cream pie recipe on the blog. And in that one, I mix up, cook the filling on the stovetop, pour it into the pie shell, and it's done. So I need to cook or blind bake the pie crust before. And for a quiche, you blind bake. What that helps do is it helps, because the inside doesn't have to cook as long as the outside, it helps prevent your pie crust from not being mushy and getting soggy from the filling absorbing into it. So I basically make my pie crust, line my, and mine isn't even that pretty, but line my pie dish. This is a deep dish, 9-inch. And then I always freeze my pie crust for 30 minutes before I bake it. What that helps do is helps prevent shrinkage. Because as you bake it, as you can see, I did have a little shrinkage here. You know, it kind of pulls away from the pie the pie plate, but freezing it will help prevent that. Then the other thing you're going to want to do is, if you can see, I've got little holes all over the bottom of my pie crust because I poked it with my fork. So what that helps prevent, again, is the shrinkage, and it allows steam to get in through there so that your pie crust doesn't shrink up as it's baking. So I did this last night. So another plan ahead tip, especially if you're entertaining for Easter, bake the pie crust the night before. Now I don't bake it probably as much as I would if I were just going to put a cream pie in and then eat it, because I bake it probably about like 85% where it's just starting to get golden brown, because this is going to go back in the oven and bake some more, okay? But this is what a blind bake is. And if you have more questions about that, go to the blog post for Quiche Lorraine, and actually no, it's on, I think it's there, and it's also on the pie crust tutorial post, how to blind bake a pie crust. So my crust is ready to go, okay? It's been blind baked and it's ready to put the filling in. So here's the formula for a quiche. Like I said, it's a perfect thing. I need to grab a towel. It's a perfect thing for using leftovers in your refrigerator. You basically want, and you can make this vegetarian too if you're not a meat eater, but I usually typically use a cup of meat. Today I'm going to use some diced ham. So it's a perfect thing for after Easter to use your leftover ham with. And I'm going to use some bacon, okay? So I have about a half a cup of diced ham and a half a cup of pre-cooked bacon for a cup of meat. Now, you always want whatever you're going to add in, your add-ins to your quiche, to be pre-cooked, okay? You're not going to put raw meat into your quiche, okay? Because it won't get cooked. So I pre-cooked my bacon, and even with my ham, I kind of just sauteed it a little bit to brown it up and to get some of the moisture out. There's a lot of moisture in ham, and that is one of the things with your quiche. You want to get some of the moisture out of things so that when you put it in and then when it bakes, things don't get kind of soggy because there is so much moisture. Okay, so a cup of meat if you want, and then a cup of veggies. So if you want to make it all vegetarian, use 2 cups of veggies. For the veggies today, I'm actually not putting any veggies in mine, but you could broccoli, onions, asparagus. I like sun-dried tomatoes in mine. I don't tend to use like just regular tomatoes because, again, there's a lot of moisture in them. I will use a sun-dried tomato though. I'm trying to think what else, other onions. A lot of people like spinach in their quiche. I'm not a fan of it. It's a texture thing for me. But you want to kind of slightly saute it or wilt it to get, again, some of the moisture out of it before you put it into the quiche. Mushrooms, again, saute them. So whatever veggie you're going to use, saute those veggies up to get some of the moisture out. Peppers, yeah, green peppers, red peppers would be perfect, Kathy. So if you've got a favorite, I want to hear a favorite filling for a quiche. What's your favorite thing to put in your quiche? Leave a comment and let me know. Peppers are great. Again, just saute them up. I like to caramelize my onions to give them that extra flavor. The only thing that I don't, I don't saute before I put in, and I am going to put it in today, so I guess I have one veggie, if you consider this a veggie, green onions. I don't, because green onions just cook so fast and easy, I don't saute those or anything before I put them in. Okay, so back to our quiche formula. You've got a cup of meat and a cup of veggies, okay, or 2 cups of veggies, and yeah, I guess you could do 2 cups of meat if you prefer. You need cheese in a quiche, and I use a cup and a half of quiche. And I forgot to pull my cheese out. Let me grab it. I actually grated it last night, so it was done. I'm using a Swiss cheese, and a Quiche Lorraine, it's traditional to use Swiss cheese. So you can use cheddar cheese, pepper jack cheese, Colby jack, I mean, whatever your favorite cheese is, Gruyere. You can pretty much use whatever cheese you have. And sometimes I even like to sprinkle a little Parmesan in there. But a cup and a half of cheese, okay? So again, a cup of veggies, a cup of meat, a cup and a half of cheese. Now, a quiche is kind of has a custard, what we call a custard base, because it's a combination of egg and milk or cream. Okay, so and that combination of egg and cream is called a custard. So here is the trick for that, and I typically use 3 eggs, and to every egg I use a half a cup of cream, or half and half. Today I'm going to use half and half, because that's what I have in my refrigerator. Basically, I know there's a lot of, I always get comments whenever I do a recipe with half and half in it from somebody in another country, where I guess they don't have half and half. I didn't know that. I didn't know if it's an American thing. If there's anybody watching from another country, let me know. Do you have half and half? But basically what it is, it's half and half. It's half milk, half whipping cream. It's like a heavy whipping cream. So if you can't find half and half, and I would use whole milk, half whole milk to half whipping cream, and that will give you half and half. So that's what we're going to use today. All right, so you've got your 3 eggs to your cup and a half of milk. So it's basically 1 egg to a half a cup of milk or cream. Now, say you're not putting in as much meat or veggies as I'm going to, you might need to add in an extra egg and half a cup of cream to fill up your pie dish, because those veggies and that meat take up space. So just keep that in mind with the formula. If you feel like you need to fill your pie dish up a little bit more, for every egg, add an additional half a cup of cream. Okay? All right. So what we're going to do is we are going to make our custard mixture to start with. And I've got my eggs. All right. And we're going to use 3 eggs. And okay, and the trick someone taught me with cracking an egg, and I just did it wrong there, is always crack your egg on the counter, and then it doesn't push any of the shell up into it. Like if you do it on the edge of a bowl, it tends to push the shell up into the egg. So, little trick for you for today. Got our 3 eggs. And I'm gonna grab my spatula. So we have 3 eggs, which means we need to add in a cup and a half of, I'm gonna use half and half. You can use whipping cream too. It'll give you a little richer custard. So it's totally up to you. All right, so we're gonna beat those together. And then you're gonna add some seasoning. This is where you can add in herbs, your favorite herbs, oregano, basil, parsley, whatever you've got. You can use dry or you can use fresh. For this particular recipe, I'm gonna use some dry mustard and some lemon zest. I like just a little touch of lemon zest. It just gives it that kind of fresh flavor. And I'm going to use some dry mustard, and I think it calls for a 1/4 teaspoon of dry mustard. So we'll add that in. But like I say, it's at this point you can kind of add in whatever your favorite seasonings are. And then I'm going to use half a teaspoon of salt. I want a little salt in there. The recipe doesn't call for, but I just like to add a little pepper. I'm going to add my lemon zest. If you don't have one of these, my favorite kitchen tool ever, it's a microplaner, and this is what I use to basically, it's like a file, and this is how I make my lemon zest. So, microplaner. If you go into, I have an Amazon store that I link to, and on my posts, if you go into that, you'll find it. But I'm gonna add my lemon zest in. All right. If you're not a lemon fan, don't add in a lemon. All right. Now we're going to assemble the quiche, okay? Let me get a few of these things out of the way. We are going to take our pie crust, which is already blind baked. So I'd say it's like 85% baked. It hasn't really gotten really golden brown yet around the edges, okay? And if you're just joining us, there are directions in in the quiche recipe and also in my pie crust tutorial that tells you how to blind bake a pie crust. So to assemble my quiche, what I like to do, I like to take my cheese, and I'm going to take about a half a cup of my cheese. If you have any questions as we're going along, let me know. It's kind of nice to have a little conversation here as we're going. So ask any questions about this recipe, anything else on the meal plan. Again, what are your favorite fillings for a quiche? I want to know. You can actually even, we talked about the meat. I forgot to say, you can actually even use like salmon. I have a salmon recipe, hazelnut quiche on the blog. So if you have some leftover salmon, throw it in. You have some leftover chicken. it can kind of, it's such a great way to use your leftovers, especially after a holiday, even your turkey, your ham after Easter, all of those leftover meats are perfect in a quiche. Okay, so I've got about a half a cup. Are my eggs at room temperature? No, they're not, and I don't think it matters. All that would do is maybe affect the cooking time by a minute or two, so they are not at room temperature. So I've got my bacon, about a half a cup of pre-cooked bacon, but that's a good question. Thank you for asking, Jody. And what I'm going to do is, if I had a whole bunch of different things, like a lot of veggies and that, I probably would mix it up in another bowl, then pour it in just so that they were evenly mixed. But since I'm only adding in bacon, and I've got my sauteed ham, again, I've sauteed and pre-cooked all the veggies and meat that are going to go into the quiche. I'm not putting them in raw. And I want to try things to be as dry as they can be, not wet, okay? Because then that's going to make, I'm just going to stir that up a little bit there, make your quiche soggy. And nobody wants a soggy quiche. Okay, so we've got our egg. All right. Let me look here. I think I might. I want to make sure I'm telling you everything. I got my notes here. I think, okay, good. So we got our filling. So we're going to pour our, I'm actually going to add the rest of my cheese, a cup of my cheese, into my egg mixture. Mix that all up. And then I'm going to pour that over. Oh, forgot my green onions. I'm going to add in green onions. Again, this is the only veggie I don't pre-cook or saute, okay? So I'm going to add my veggies in. And I usually will save a few aside to sprinkle on the top at the end, just to kind of garnish it with to make it look pretty. All right, we're going to pour this over. Now, with this particular quiche, I'm going to show you this because I think what I'm going to do, because I did not put in, and I mentioned this in the beginning, I did not put in the cup of veggies, my filling isn't quite as high as I would really like it to be in my quiche. So this is when I'm just going to take my ratio of my 1 egg to my half a cup of milk, okay? And I am gonna just add that in to fill it up a little bit more. I'm not really gonna, because I'm only doing one, I'm not gonna add in any more seasoning or anything like that. But this is just gonna help fill up. I'm gonna pour that right over the top. There we go. Kind of just like, if things don't look evenly distributed, I just kind of move them around a bit. Okay, so this is ready to go into the oven, and it is gonna bake at 350 for about 20 minutes. And I like to put it on a cookie sheet before I put it in the oven because it helps me not to slosh it all over the place and into the oven when I get there. But so one question I get is, how do you tell when a quiche is done? Okay, there's a couple different ways. You want it to be set around the edges, but you still want a little jiggle in the middle. And so it's not gonna look raw, but there will still be a slight jiggle, because what's gonna happen is when you pull the quiche out, it's gonna continue to cook for about 10 more minutes or so from that heat in there. So, and you don't want tough quiche, tough eggs. So I always do it so, and my crust is gonna get golden brown, and if you find that your crust is getting too brown, I'll take foil and make a little like tent over just over the edge of my crust to keep it from over browning, okay? So that's another trick. But you'll see that your quiche is gonna get brown around the edges, but still a slight jiggle, just a slight jiggle in the middle. Another test that you can use is to take a knife, a thin knife, and insert it into the quiche about 1 inch or so out from the center. Don't do it right in the middle. Do it slightly away from the center, stick it in, and if it comes out clean, your quiche is done. The only trick is sometimes if there is a lot of cheese in your quiche, that's gonna kind of stick to the knife. So yeah, sometimes that isn't always the easiest. The other way I like that you can test is I take my little handy dandy ThermoWorks meat thermometer that I use for everything, and I stick it in, and you want the eggs to be at about 165 to 168, not below 165, okay? So that's another way to tell if it's done. And I do like to let it sit. Like I said, I'll usually let it sit because I typically eat it at room temperature. It will sit, you know, anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes before, but at least 10 to 15 minutes. Let it sit as it continues to cook and firm up. You can stick it in the refrigerator, make it the night before, pull it out in the morning, eat at room temperature, warm it up, serve it however you want. But I just love quiche for that reason that, you know, if you keep a pie crust in your freezer, if you don't want to make your own. If you want to make your own, use my recipe over at the perfect pie crust tutorial at yourhomebasedmom.com. And then usually you got eggs on hand, some milk, some cream, and then clean out the refrigerator. And use whatever veggies you've got, whatever meat you've got, whatever cheese you've got. And like I said, just make sure you saute it up, get the moisture out of things before you put it into the quiche. This is my thermo pen from ThermoWorks. And it's awesome. I use it for everything. I use it to test my water temperature when I'm making proofing yeast. I use it for my meat. I use it on the barbecue, all kinds of things. I think every kitchen needs a good thermometer, and this is a good one. I think it's a kind of more of an expensive one. I think it's about $100, but hands down works awesome. But get yourself one. Whether you find one at Target or wherever it is, get yourself a thermometer. I actually even use this when I'm making candy too. So it's got all kinds of, it's multi-purpose. So any questions about the quiche? Like I said, this is ready to go in the oven. I will come back in stories today, later today, and show you the finished product. It's a great way to make dinner ahead of time, or if you're entertaining for Easter brunch, it's a perfect make ahead. I have a couple other quiche recipes on the blog. There is a salmon hazelnut quiche, which is I served at a ladies' luncheon, and it was a huge hit. I also have an enchilada quiche, which makes a really good main dish dinner quiche. Kind of the taste of flavor of enchiladas in a quiche form. So if you missed the beginning or have any questions, if you head to the blog post, I think I've included all that information there, especially the ratio of 1 cup meat, 1 cup veggie, 1.5 cup cheese, 3 eggs, to 1.5 cup milk, or 1 egg to half a cup of milk. So anyway, hope it's a great day. Hope it's a great weekend for you. And we will see you next week. Watch for the new meal plan to be in your inbox this Sunday. And we'll be doing a few more lives. I'm in town all next week. I've been traveling so much. It's good to be home. So we'll probably be in the kitchen twice next week doing a live. So hope you'll join me. Thanks.